Welcome to ESVN OT, the Emma Sports Vigeland Network show. My name is Emma Vigeland, and we are back, folks. First things first, subscribe, youtube.com/ESVN show. Put on push notifications so you know when we're going live just a few minutes early like we're doing today. And if you subscribe and you watch us on YouTube, you'll be able to see the new camera angle that one Bradley Alsop is using right now.
I usually used to turn this way to that camera, but it's...
Now you can look straight at me.
Which is wild.
What would you say the distance is between us if you were to like...
It's so short.
It's probably...
10 feet?
Yeah, that's where Matt normally sits for the show. 10 feet's generous. We're probably 8 feet apart, 6 feet apart.
I don't even... How much is a foot?
I mean, I'm 5'9", so if I were to lay from where I'm sitting to where you are, just as a board on top of the desk, we could probably touch fingertips. Just touch fingertips, okay, weirdos.
Disgusting.
Yeah, but I mean, we're in tight quarters here. But you can see some more of the MR office, folks. Maybe a little
framed
bit.
stuff. Our cabinet with our of curiosities.
Yes, aka filled with toilet paper. We've got some good stuff here in the MR office, but we have more good stuff for you right now because since we last were on air, I mean, the NFL has gotten really fun. First of all, I will say I did win my fantasy championship in my old league at TYT, which is pretty funny given recent events. So happy about that. Even with a Nico Collins and Breece Hall kind of terrible performance, I made some great lineup choices by starting Xavier Worthy, Jalen McMillan in my flex, and Bo Nix over Kyler Murray, which was a real gut play. But I just figured that Bo Nix would do more in a shootout against the Bengals than Kyler Murray would do in a largely meaningless game against the Rams, and for them. And looks like I was right. So I ended up winning. Congrats to me. Happy, happy, happy. We're all having a good time. And so in that period, I was just like even more obsessive about the NFL. I was watching the college football playoffs yesterday. We were talking a bit about this and how their overtime rules are just annoying. Like, I like that Texas-Arizona State game, but holy moly, we really don't need to do... I would prefer more of the overtime rules that they have in the NFL because it's just like it's setting up the defenses to fail in college. And I know they don't really play defense as much in college, but I'm sick of the shootout kind of thing in overtime. It's just too much, and it's too much to put on these players. They need to go home and play in now for Texas. Texas needs to play in the semifinals against Penn State next week. So, but. That was a great game. I don't know why I'm complaining about it. That running back that every white conservative loves.
Scatabo.
He really did have a good game. But like total... We're back to the early days of the football guy, which is always... What was that fullback from the Browns that got on the cover of Madden that one year? Peyton...
Oh, Peyton Hillis?
Was it Peyton Hillis? And that was
the
just...
legend Peyton Hillis?
Like a bunch of white bros on the internet that willed that into existence, it felt like. I think that this is the kind of, football guy, grit to the grind. So I'm even saying it affectionately.
Not to further mythologize Peyton Hillis, but I'm not sure if you know this. He heroically saved his children from drowning in the ocean.
I know.
I know. He sort of even more than most fits the mold of kind of like He-Man, everyman hero.
Yeah. Yeah, and he was in the hospital for a really long time.
Oh yeah, it was actually like kind of touch and go, but good guy to remember.
I'm kind of rooting for Texas. Quinn Ewers, Trumpy idiot, but it's just odd because he makes a few plays and throws where you go, wow, he has really great arm talent, but he doesn't seem to have ever been able to put it all together. It's a little,
he's very kind of like mercurial almost. Like he was sort of like floundering for a number of possessions in the first half, it seemed, and then really got it going.
Yes.
When it really counted for the fourth down conversion, the subsequent touchdown, and then obviously then of course then the defense kind of shut the door at that interception. So
yeah,
very entertaining. But I see what you're saying, just in the sense also I just think like I don't love like the lack of a time limit, and I also don't
Yes.
love the kind of arbitrary position establishing where it's sort of like, okay, now you're at the 25-yard line or something like that. I think it's just sort of like, I feel like the conditions are doing too much for the play.
Right. I mean,
I'd like to see like a kickoff or like a
there is zero sudden death element. There needs to be a bit more of a sudden death element.
That's
and
sort
the NFL gets it right. You have, if you score a touchdown, right, I guess you end the game. But if you score a field goal, the opposition has the ability to match that score. Like
I think that's like makes sense.
Yes.
Especially after that one Chiefs-Bills game where sort of like they would,
or
Josh Allen didn't get a chance to respond.
But I think they correct. I could be wrong. I think they corrected it for the playoffs, and they do have if you score a touchdown, you have in the playoffs opportunity to respond, and then it's sudden death if you get that other touchdown, which I feel like that's perfect for college. Like that's good for the NFL playoffs, and that's great for the college football playoffs. Maybe not in the regular season, just make it a playoff rule because it's just. I mean. I don't know. I agree. I agree with the ability of having the chance to answer, but then you don't get another chance to answer so that it goes like touchdown, 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 touchdown. It's just it's excessive. But in the NFL over the weekend, I mean, it really just was like a great weekend for football. You had the Minnesota Vikings who just like completely are cementing themselves as one of the best team in the sport and defying all odds. That footage of Sam Darnold in the locker room afterward was so lovely. Kevin
O'Connell just basking in what he's created.
Yeah. I mean, the Texans look like garbage. That's a whole nother bag. Kaimi Fairbairn didn't even attempt a field goal in that game. They were so shut down. And Nico Collins still doesn't look right. But
it's just really upsetting. I mean, I'm sure we'll get into it a little bit, but just this season with the South divisions, it's almost like, should we just do the top 8 records? Like, should we even have in the division records be an immediate playoff berth? Like, am I really like the fact that I'm gonna have to watch this like moribund Texans team?
I know.
Obviously, the defense is playing well, but the offense is just so busted.
But like, if the Steelers are the 5 seed, I could see them beating the Steelers. Those are the two teams I feel the worst about right now.
Right, and I guess it's also of
the AFC secured playoff spots.
And I still feel. Like, my affinity, or at least I'm not feeling skepticism about CJ Stroud. I just think the composition of the offense is like
crappy.
It's out of sync. There's something like it's Nate Tice, I think, said this on his podcast for Yahoo Sports, but with like it's one thing if guys are being beaten one-on-one on the offensive line. It's another thing where like vets like Shaq Thompson and Laramie Tunsil are like consistently either like mixing up rules or missing assignments or like not getting into the right set when the ball is snapped. Like, to me, that's like there's something about the coaching is like severely deficient.
I think that smarter people than me have said that he is doing kind of Shanahan light and hasn't updated his scheme much. And I think that the offensive line has regressed.
Totally.
That there's been film on their scheme, and it's not as if Slowick could be fired at the end of this year.
I feel like I think it's almost something that I never would have considered or thought to be possible. Even like, I don't know, even at definitely week 1, but maybe even 6 or 7 weeks into the season. But now I'm sort of like, this is kind of like this is an eroding and consistent problem that's like seemingly getting worse. It's not getting better.
It's not DeMeco Ryans. I mean, I understand
the defense is
he's
doing
the
what
head
it's supposed
coach.
to be doing, I feel like.
Right, but he needs to. If you're a defensive head coach, you need to have somebody that you can trust as your offensive coordinator,
yes,
and who plays complementary football with you. And I just think DeMeco Ryans has taken this team now to the playoffs 2 years in a row. It's the fact that Stroud, given the quality of the football that he can throw and how most of the time it's on the money. It's just that it seems like these receivers or these DBs are jumping these routes. It feels like Slowick is not up to the task as of right now. Maybe they retain him and he updates his kind of scheme in the offseason. But that's just the kind of thing that I've observed. So
then to say nothing of another obviously brutal injury for Tank Dell, who
he may never play football again. It's a horrible
the
injury.
combination of obviously he was the victim of a shooting, as well as having another similar very significant leg injury prior. It's just like it is such a dispiriting and kind of like devastating blow to that team, especially to CJ Stroud, who is very, very close to him personally.
Yeah, I saw him crying, and that was like breaking my heart. I'm a big CJ Stroud fan. There's no doubt about it. But on that front, I got to eat some crow. Bryce Young looking like he can play at least a little bit in the NFL, right? So I mean, we're at the very least getting to that point. But I just wanted before we get into our picks, I just wanted to give everybody a state of the playoff race and just what is set right now and what can be determined in Week 18. I did a little bit of not research, but just like made my mind think about it for a little bit because it can be so complicated. The AFC is more set right now than the NFC. The AFC, the Chiefs, no matter, that's why they're resting their starters in this game. They're the 1 seed. It doesn't matter. They can go into the playoffs as 15-2. The Bills have 3 losses. They will be ahead of the Bills. But the Bills are also locked into the 2 seed. So the Bills, apparently Josh Allen wants to play for a little so that his starting record and his incredible Iron Man abilities continue.
Which I couldn't tell if that was Romo and Nance blowing smoke more than usual, or if it was like they were sincere. Okay, so
McDermott said it. Yeah,
he's actually sincere about not wanting to continue this Iron Man streak.
Maybe start for a quarter, it seems like, and then not play.
I think even a quarter is not. I think he should hand the ball off and get off the field.
Whew, I know, football gods. I mean, look at what Saquon. Look at what they're doing with
and
him.
He's basically dispelling of the notion of I'm going to break the single season rushing record, which I think is probably the right call for their playoff aspirations.
Yeah. So, I mean, knock on wood, I want Josh Allen has a bad hand. I want him to be better for the playoffs. Right. Yes, so I would, at the very least, hope a lot of the other Bills stars get to rest because they are locked into that 2 seed and they will play 7 seed. The Texans are also going to be the division winner with the worst playoff record. So they are locked into the 4 seed.
4 seed.
Now, what is undecided is the 3 seed in terms of the division, because the Ravens will more than likely win the AFC North. The Browns, keep seeing the line. When I first checked, it was 17.5. The Ravens were favored by. It's 19.5 hours later. So it seems like the odds makers know that like the Browns may not even be trying to win this game. They're now currently ahead. Brian killed me. Ahead of the Giants in the draft order. So if they are actually trying to get a successor to Deshaun Watson, perhaps that is what the game plan is, and maybe the odds makers know something that we don't know. They are the first game of the weekend. They kick off at 4:30 on Saturday, and then the Steelers play at 8 p.m. The Steelers need the Ravens to lose against the tanking Browns for them to win the AFC title. And I don't think that's going to happen. They need to both have the Ravens lose, and then beat the Bengals, which is the other side of this coin. Because the Bengals need to win. They're going to be extremely motivated. They have to win against the Steelers on Saturday at 8 p.m. where they are out of the playoffs. But then they also need 2 other things to happen. They need the Broncos to lose to the Chiefs, who are going to be playing their backups. Carson Wentz is going to be playing, not Mahomes. And then they need the Dolphins to lose to the Jets. That second scenario is also tough because the Jets can't buy a win right now. And speaking of the Bills, they looked pathetic against the Bills. Again, I was watching them closely in the championship with Breece Hall.
It was like a biblical massacre.
Yes. Well, we can get to that in a bit. But basically, for the Broncos, it's extremely simple. Beat the Chiefs backups at home, and you're in the playoffs. They're in the 7. They're most likely the 7 seed, I believe. And then they would be traveling to Buffalo to play the Bills. Now, the Dolphins, if the Broncos lose and the Dolphins beat the Jets, then they're in. Now, of these 3 teams, I don't want the Dolphins to get into the playoffs. I'm sorry. I'm sick of this crap. They're going to get smoked in Buffalo. It's just not fun.
Which we saw last year.
We saw last year. Burrow in Orchard Park sounds amazing.
No, I really, really want the Bengals to get in.
But if they don't
So
get in,
badly.
I want the Broncos in because I think Bo Nix is a baller. Like, I truly think, and he can play in that weather.
Definitely.
So the Dolphins, please, like, I can't watch another freaking, and who knows? I mean, it seems like there maybe Tua will likely play, but he was out last week. He's banged up, and it's just, there's a scenario that if the Broncos lose and the Dolphins beat the Jets, they're in. That's a likely thing that could happen. And so, and in the most unlikely scenario, which is that all three lose, the Broncos, the Dolphins, and the Bengals, the Broncos still get in because of an advantage in record. So then we have to go to like what is going to happen with the 5 or the 6 seeds, because those 3 teams that I just mentioned, the Broncos, the Dolphins, and the Bengals are in play for the 7 seed. The 5 and 6 seeds, it's if the Ravens win, then it's between the Chargers and the Steelers for those seeds. Both are 10 and 6. The Chargers did lose to the Steelers earlier this year. I think, right? The Chargers lost to the Steelers. That's, yeah, yep, they lost to the Steelers in September. I had that correct. So the Steelers have the tiebreak. But if the Steelers lose to the Bengals, and we'll talk about that game in a little bit, a highly motivated Bengals team that needs to win that game. And then if the Chargers beat the Raiders, who are bad, the Chargers get to beat the 5 seed. And this is very desirable in the AFC because the Texans are the 4 seed. And they would be going to Houston in a dome, a controlled environment against a team that is really falling apart right now, as opposed to going to Baltimore.
Which they've not had success recently.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, Baltimore is a scary, scary, scary place to play in a playoff situation with the way that the Ravens have been playing this later in the defense has turned it around. The Ravens look phenomenal. So that's the state of play. It really, in actuality, unless the Browns beat the Ravens, which I don't see happening, it's going to be between the Steelers and the Chargers for those who's going to be the 5 or the 6 seed. And I think the 5 seed is very highly coveted for the reasons I just said. In the NFC, it seems like everything is set, but nothing is set in terms of seeding. So the only seed that is set are the Philadelphia Eagles at the 2 seed. The 1 seed, as we know, is up for grabs right now. The Lions and the Vikings, both 14-2, historic in the same division, battling it out the last game of the regular season on Sunday Night Football. I mean, we don't even need to sell how good that game is going to be because it's going to be phenomenal. Darnold, Goff, Cali boys battling it out for the NFC North. The 3 seed is between the Rams and the Bucs now. So the Buccaneers do have an actual chance to get the 3 seed, although it's less straightforward because they need the Rams to lose. So the Rams are resting Matthew Stafford. That could be a possibility for them. But if the Bucs lose, the Rams automatically are the 3 seed. The Bucs need to beat the Saints, who are bad now and don't have Derek Carr, and they need the Rams to lose for them to get the 3 seed. But if the Rams win, they have the 3. The Bucs or the Falcons are at the 4 seed. And so the Falcons have a very non-straightforward path to winning the division. They need the Bucs to lose and they need to win. And I just don't see the Bucs losing to this Saints team, but we shall see. Anything can happen, and that's how that will shake out. Now, the 5 seed, as we mentioned, the top wild card is going to be the Vikings or the Lions, whoever loses that game. And then the 6 or 7 seed is very fascinating too, because the Commanders are ahead in the tiebreak against the Packers, not based on head-to-head because they didn't play this year, but it's conference win percentage. So the Commanders win, and they're the 6 seed. And that means that they would be going to either the Rams or the Bucs, right? Much more favorable matchup than if they were the 7 seed. If they lose against the Dallas Cowboys and the Packers, I think the Packers, they get this if Washington beats the Cowboys, or if they both lose, the Packers would get that seed. That's just much more desirable because you don't have to go to Philly. And you don't want to go to Philly, right? Especially with them now resting their starters in this week. So I hope that was explainable for people, but that's what we have going into this weekend. And the Commanders, I think, are going to be really motivated to beat the Cowboys. But the Cowboys have shown, like, now that Micah Parsons is fully back, Cooper Rush is playing really well as a backup quarterback. Like, not a starter, but what you want for your backup. He can manage the offense. They're going to be a tough out. And Dan Quinn, there's some familiarity there.
And but I agree with you in the sense that the Commanders, I think, especially after last week's, another clutch win for Jaden Daniels, they're definitely going to want to kind of plant their flag and have a convincing divisional win before their first postseason berth, and a decent. I feel like it's been a few years since I can't remember the last time.
The Washington Commanders beat the Cowboys?
No, the Commanders when was the last time the Commanders were in the playoffs? Was it?
Oh, RG3 era.
It had to have been since RG3, right?
Kirk Cousins?
That's, I guess, the only thing I'm wondering is when I think maybe there was one Kirk year when the Commanders were in, but so that's exciting. But also, it's sort of a jump off point just for me to say generally it's always so hinky.
He lost twice in the wild card round as a part of the Washington football team. His only win was the NFC wild card against the Saints, the Minneapolis Miracle.
Right.
So he's 1-4 in the playoffs. That's
God,
a part of the narrative. Yeah.
Right. And then, but I guess all that is to say is that it's a little hinky week 18 because, as you're saying, there's a lot of like lineup, tribulations, lineup kind of specificities to account for when there's still actually quite a bit of like genuinely important seeding stuff going on.
Right.
So it'll be kind of funny to see if the any given Sunday axiom of like, oh my God, the Saints are winning this game. Why are they winning this game? All of a sudden becomes like apparent in the final, the final moments of the regular season before the playoffs.
Right. So that's what we have. And then, I mean, the perfect game for NBC to be the final game of the year. Lions, Vikings. It's going to be amazing. Neither of those teams deserves to lose that game. It's a shame.
I know.
It's a shame. And we're talking about the flip side of what we were criticizing about. The Texans probably shouldn't be in the playoffs just based on how they're playing. But I still like divisions because I think it engenders rivalries in an era where, for example, Malik Neighbors is BFFs with Jaden Daniels, so there's no rivalry between those two guys in the division. But you need that.
They'll play each other twice a year.
Yeah. I mean, and I see Malik's posting Washington Commander stuff about Jaden Daniels on his Insta story. That's the kind of thing that wouldn't happen in previous years. So
I wish you were here, bro.
Right. I like the divisional element to keep that alive, but even though I broadly think it's a good thing that players have more solidarity with one another, but it is just it's a shame that one of those teams has to go on the road. It shouldn't be the case. But with that said, let's get into our picks for the final week of the NFL season. ESVN
Stone Cold Lock of the Century all week.
Boom.
Oh my God.
Thank you, Dan, for that wonderful graphic as always. / animation. Now, let's get into it here. To recap for everybody a little bit, Bradley and I, we posted our picks both on Twitter and on a post on YouTube. So if you missed it, we did post our picks for the Christmas week. And the week prior to that, we ended up going I went 1-1-1. That was when the Broncos played the Chargers. Bradley and I both missed on that. The Rams covered against the Jets that week, and then the Vikings pushed against the Seahawks, won by 3. Bradley and I had 2 of the same picks, so we both missed on Denver plus 2.5 against the Chargers. This is week 16, I'm sorry. And we both pushed on the Vikings, only winning by 3 in Seattle. And then Bradley went 0-2-1 with the Eagles not covering against the Commanders in that game where Jalen Hurts went out with an injury. So, you can't foresee that. It looked like they were on their way to winning that game.
0-2-1 is brutal.
Well, we both bounced back. So last week 17, we were both 2-1. I did not get the Broncos covering plus 3.5 against the Bengals. I almost did multiple times, but that overtime rule with the touchdown thing really hurts you in that situation. The Cardinals did cover against the Rams plus 6.5. I got that correct. and the Buffalo Bills destroyed the Jets. -9.5 was not enough. Bradley, you missed just slightly with the Packers -1 in Minnesota. That was your one loss of last week. I was surprised they were favored, but that's a whole different story. The Commanders -3.5 did cover against the Falcons, and the Detroit Lions in San Francisco on Monday Night Football covered the -3.5 point spread. So I'm 27-21-3. Bradley is 23-26-2. So there you have it, folks. So let's just start here because we have a pick that is identical. We're both picking the Cincinnati Bengals -2 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Bradley, why don't you kick this one off here? Because I'm curious about your thinking. I'm sure it's similar to mine.
Well, I just feel like, honestly, even though the record has obviously not been reflecting it until probably the last few games, I just like Joe Burrow has literally been playing the best football of his life.
Right.
And and it's not even just it's not even just been the one connection of Jamar Chase and Burrow. T. Higgins had 3 touchdowns in their most recent game. Like, I just think this offense, and specifically Burrow's play, is
otherworldly.
Coming on, as we've seen many times with this Bengals team, kind of in the exact right time for them to ignite and be a bit more of a formidable presence in the AFC. Of course, the defense is obviously going to be what is ultimately going to take them out of games. But
they've been playing better.
I was going to say, I do feel like at the very least, it has not been nearly as abysmal as it was the last few games. So I'm sort of thinking if this formula can hold, and obviously if all the cards shake out for the Bengals to make it to the postseason, if their defense can be like the 19th best defense while being like maybe a top 3 offense,
right,
that's a better recipe than before. But I'm just thinking with the Bengals' urgency, how Burrow has been playing, and that with the Steelers, I think faltering a little bit. I don't think it's that. I did think they were honestly looking pretty good until that Russ fumble in the that was against the Eagles, right? If I'm not mistaken? I'm trying. I forgot who they were playing, but the Russ had that costly fumble after a really strong rush.
You mean last week?
Yeah, was that?
It's because it was on Wednesday.
Yeah,
it was because it was 8 days ago. It was the Chiefs.
Oh, sorry, it was the
yes.
Chiefs. I was like, who played and when was that? Was that last week?
Yes,
right. That it was like I feel like they've had moments. I still think they're a little bit away from being like really, really a kind of intimidating presence against some of the upper crust teams. And I know the Bengals have not shown that in terms of wins and losses until very recently. I'm still mostly going off of this of being like really blown away with how Burrow has been playing regardless of the outcome of the game.
Yeah, I think he's playing like an MVP candidate who won't get consideration because of their record. It seems to be a 2-person race between Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, and frankly, given their stats and the way they've carried their teams, I can't even say that that's the incorrect way to go. Like, Burrow in any other year would be playing would be the MVP candidate, but the team just hasn't been good enough. Since week 12, the Bengals have averaged 31.2 points, and week 12 was their bye. So since they've come back from the bye, they've been a different team. And I am a little scared away by the fact that this is in Pittsburgh, and that Mike Tomlin is going to have his guys ready to go regardless of like what the scenario is. But I do think the psychology of having the division potentially wrapped up before they kick off the game with an odd scheduling choice by the NFL to have the Ravens, like the Bucks and the Falcons are playing at the same time, so neither of them know what's happening on Sunday. Like, that makes more sense to me than potentially having the division wrapped up. And then what does Pittsburgh have to play for except for seeding? And the Bengals are just going to have their hair on fire. Again, I am scared of the fact that Tomlin is a superior coach to Zach Taylor, and this is more just about, at this point in the year, the Jimmies and the Joes over even the X's and O's. And this is part of why what's so frustrating about the Bengals. This part of the year is when they start to dominate. 1, because Burrow is clutch, but 2, it's because they are physically imposing on offense with the size of their receivers, the precision of his passing. And, the secondary for the Steelers has been banged up, right? I'm not even sure, is Joey Porter playing this game?
Yeah, I'm actually not. But yes, he has obviously been, dealing with injuries.
Yeah, he is set to play.
Which is crucial for them, especially with, who is going to be
crucial,
who
but
Porter's going to need to be lining up against.
crucial, but again, I'm just not necessarily sure it can matter against this group. Like Dante Jackson is questionable. He has a back issue, and they're just banged up on defense. They really are. And so I'm just going to go with who I think is the better team or playing hotter right now. So we're both going with the Bengals -2 on Saturday in Pittsburgh. Now, I'm going to go here with the Chargers -4.5 in Las Vegas. And this is, again, the rule by which I go with at the end of this year is teams that have things to play for and teams that don't. And as I said earlier, the Chargers are playing for a lucrative seed. They are trying to be the 5 seed so that they can go to another dome team. Not that it really matters too much for Justin Herbert with that arm strength, but similar environment that they play in at home. And against the arguably the worst team right now that has locked off a playoff spot in the AFC, which is the Houston Texans. And so I do think that the Chargers are going to be motivated, and they always are motivated under Jim Harbaugh. And so I'm just going with the fact that the Raiders have won 2 in a row. That's probably all the juice that they have. Aiden O'Connell has played kind of okay. It seems like Aiden O'Connell will probably be the backup in the NFL for a while. He's been better than I anticipated, and it's been a stark contrast with Desmond Ridder. It's been a real stark contrast. So I just really see the Chargers kind of being more motivated. Ladd McConkey has crossed the 1,000-yard receiving threshold. He's back healthier. I don't really think they have anybody that can run with him. And, J.K. Dobbins, the Chargers are getting healthy at the right time again. And so I just thought 4.5 points, even if they start to take Herbert out as they scoreboard watch, even if they start to take him out throughout the game, I still think that they'll be able to win regardless and win by perhaps a touchdown. So I'm going with the Chargers -4.5. Playing their division rival, the Las Vegas Raiders. And you have a similar mindset about this matchup that I literally wrote down and then erased.
Yeah, I'm taking the Eagles at -3 at home against the Giants just because I do think even though we'll most likely see a significant number of starters not playing for the Eagles.
Saquon, he got that 2,000. Seems like he's not going for Eric Dickerson's record,
It didn't seem as if it was slowing them down too much having Kenny Pickett behind center, despite the one throw where it seemed as if the football turned into a bowling ball and flipped Kenny Pickett over somehow.
Oh, God, yeah.
But I just think, even with the Giants kind of showing some unfortunate and potentially unnecessary life recently, with Drew Lock going for 4 touchdowns or whatever.
And the first one to Malik Neighbors was it was pass at the line of scrimmage and Neighbors just zoomed at whatever. Go on.
It's just, I don't think necessarily that will translate even to a team of Eagles team of reserves, which I think honestly, in some ways outside of Pickett himself, just because Pickett is not Pickett's not blowing anyone away at the quarterback position. I still think most of the Eagles reserves could make up a football team. And so I'm still pretty confident, especially
Tanner McKee. I mean, Tanner McKee put them away last week. Tanner McKee, remember AJ Brown threw his first touchdown pass into the stands and had to go, and then Big Dom had to go get it back.
Big Dom was like, "Hey, buddy."
They are the most talented team in the NFL, and it's not close. It's just a question of
how much effort they'll put in, I guess. But I just don't see the Giants even having better offensive performance, being able to win in the last week against this Eagles team. Honestly, regardless of the composition, I could be totally wrong, but I'm just. The Eagles at home against this kind of flagging, sort of flailing Giants team that's sort of looking for signs of life where either there may not be or should not be, I'm going to take the Eagles.
Yeah. Yep. I hear you on that front. Similar mindset. The Chiefs 10.5-point dogs in Denver. That is way too much. Even with, not in Denver. Yes, in Denver. Even with all their backups in. I'm sorry. Andy Reid is gonna try to screw over their division rival, and even if it's a backdoor cover, I could see I think that the Broncos will likely win this game, but I could also see like a bunch of hungry Chiefs players who don't get a ton of playing time being excited to screw over their division rival at home and make sure that they ruin the party. And so I just felt like 10.5 points was way too much to give, even with a team that is playing its backups right now. So, they're gonna rest starters, but I just think a backdoor cover is likely, and I'm going with the Kansas City Chiefs plus 10.5.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to me, even just to see that large of a line against the Chiefs. I obviously know it'll be like Carson Wentz behind center, which is like
this is the weirdest week to pick games.
A really
by
bizarro
far.
thing to think. Like, I'm wondering about my past self learning that Carson Wentz would be starting a game for the Kansas City Chiefs in 2025. I think my response would be, "What is 2025?"
Yeah,
that's a real year.
Yeah,
but I agree with you though. I kind of just don't see. Even if the Broncos win, I don't think it'll be like necessarily a 2-touchdown victory.
Wentz is seemingly hated in the locker room and a total asshole, but he has arm talent and physical ability.
and as we've seen with Chad Henne before, the Chiefs' offense mostly runs, on time and effectively with a backup QB when they have to.
Yeah.
I mean, Henne had to come in for that one playoff game against the Browns and literally led like a 90-yard touchdown drive, and like that was like sort of, and then basically was like, "All right, Chad, you're good. Thanks, buddy."
Yeah, right.
Thanks, man.
Yep.
You can go back to the clipboard now. And he's like, "All right, cool.
Yeah,
you're welcome."
Gosh. That was the ankle injury for Mahomes that caused him to lose to Brady. That was the pandemic year.
Yes,
right?
exactly. It was the 2021 Super Bowl, right?
Just for the narrative, it would have been so nice if he won that one.
To win one game against.
It's just he was hampered. It was not
right.
Anyway, I hate those pandemic championships. I just wish they were at the Lakers in the bubble. Who cares?
The Dodgers.
Yeah. The Dodgers finally won the World Series.
The three-peat Lightning.
Sorry?
The three-peat Lightning, right?
Yeah. Right, exactly. And then their second, that was their first, and then their second one was also a pandemic shortened year. One was in the bubble, and then the other was
so strange.
Anyway,
can't believe that it happened.
Bradley, the Dolphins, you're picking at the Jets, basically a pick 'em -1.
I don't think this requires a lot of thinking. The Jets are the worst team in the league in both vibes and on-field product. They can't score even if the field was emptied of the entire defense and they had to walk it in. Even if they had that circumstance, John Simpson would commit a false start penalty, setting them back another 5 to 10 yards. There would be an illegal formation, and somehow they would get intercepted by oxygen.
Yeah.
They are an embarrassing, pitiful, frankly disgusting on-field product, and I have no faith in them whatsoever to win a game after what I saw. And I've said this probably an iteration of this yarn every week since probably week 7 or 8, but every week they continue to prove to me different ignominious ways for them to lose in the most comical and unbelievable fashion. To humiliate themselves in unique ways.
Last week was pretty humiliating, although you wouldn't know it from Rodgers, who said that these past 2 years were the best of his life.
Yeah, I wish I could say the same.
Did you see that he also, Garrett Wilson, there's also rumors that he wants a trade if Rodgers is still the quarterback,
And if he does, I will stop. I'm going to stop talking on microphone. But
he is the only Jets player that has his head held high in terms of dignity right now. Like, he's had a really good year despite horrible circumstances.
Which he has has his entire career. He somehow
Yes.
he somehow gets near to or over 1,000-yard receiving seasons with like actually horrible quarterback play.
Yeah.
It's astonishing.
I'm a
what
huge fan of his. Yeah.
He's great. And if the Jets choose Aaron Rodgers over Garrett Wilson, I should not be, but will be most likely held responsible for my actions. But I won't get into that too much here. But yeah, they're a disgrace. I'm so thrilled that the season is finally over.
Same.
And they are not going to beat the Miami Dolphins. And if they do, I'll eat my shoe.
Yeah, this is one of the worst sports falls I've ever experienced. I mean, and I love the Knicks, but you know my true love. You never forget your first love. The Giants are my first love, then the Rangers, and then like the Knicks were always in my life, but it was more my dad loved the Knicks, and I got into it more later because my fiance is such a huge fan. I love the Knicks, but the Rangers being so disgusting and the Giants being so disgusting. Like, I am so happy we're in 2025. Trump reelected in 24. The entire, like, covering the Gaza genocide all year.
Leave it in there. Let's hope.
Like, I mean, whoa. I mean, none of these things are connected, but it's just like
like it was an overwhelming slog of negative, bad, sometimes historically bad, both political and sports related stuff from our
and you even got married at the end of 23. That
it wasn't a
part of it.
2024.
Yes, right. I got engaged in 2023. Wasn't even 2024 sucked.
Yeah. We're leaving it there.
Well, someone's vacuuming right outside our door, so I'll just reiterate our picks for the final week of the regular season. We're both going with the Bengals -2 against the Steelers. I'm going with the Chargers -4.5 at the Raiders. The Kansas City Chiefs +10.5 playing their backups against the Denver Broncos in Denver. Bradley's also going with the Bengals -2. The Eagles -3 at home against the lowly Giants, resting their starters, but still could probably pull it off. The Dolphins -1 in New York against the Jets. I am 27-21-3. Bradley's 23-26-2. A little complicated, but we're still hovering around there. We will see you on Monday.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Enjoy
Happy
the
New
games.
Year.
Happy New Year.
Bye.